Welcome back to Charging Stack, where we talk to the people building the next wave of mobility. Today, we're joined by Paul Somerville from VMAX, the Swiss-founded e-scooter brand that started back in 2015 and expanded into the US in 2023, now operating outside of LA. VMAX positions itself around durability and real-world confidence with UL 2272 certification and IPX6 water resistance across the lineup. It's really great to have you here today on Charging Stack.
Thanks so much for having me, Martin. Great to be here.
Absolutely, so many things for us to cover. Super interesting products, so I know we're gonna have a great time talking today. I would like to kind of start with, you've been kind of deep in the scooter world for a long time. What would you say? Scooters are out there. We're seeing them a lot more. They're not stigmatized anymore. They're kind of normalized right now. What would you say what people still misunderstood about what makes a scooter good after, let's say, first 2 weeks of owning one?
Yeah, I think the big thing is that people they know scooters through rental scooters, and they know scooters through sort of the lowest common denominator, the least expensive scooters out there. And both of those can end up kind of being disappointments for different reasons. But focusing on the ones that people own, there's so many $200 scooters out there, and we'll probably expand on this a little bit later. But they can end up being a really disappointing experience. And I worry sometimes that some people will have that as their only experience and decide the scooters just aren't for them. On the one hand, it's nice they make it accessible to get started, but on the other hand, it can end up turning people into people that don't like scooters or don't think the scooters are any good with the hard, solid tires, things like that.
Yeah, of course. It's a massive difference between buying, let's say, VMAX and buying something off Temu, as you said, for $150, $200. It's a huge difference in experience. Kind of when you think about.
And one of the big differences is just the solid tires versus tubeless tires. All the VMAX scooters use tubeless tires, and all the kind of leading scooters these days use tubeless tires. And so then, whether you have suspension or not, you've always got that sort of base level of comfort there, kind of smoothing out the ride. And then another thing that as suspension becomes more popular, some of our scooters have it and some of them don't. It turns out that, it's not always a must have. I mean, there's trade-offs. You get more portability having a scooter that doesn't have suspension. And if you've got the tubeless tires, it really smooths things out a lot. And it goes beyond, we all kind of know that feeling from riding a bicycle, right? We're all familiar with riding a suspensionless vehicle using tires to keep things smooth. But what it turns out that the biggest thing you do on a bicycle when you see a big bump coming is you get out of the seat and you use your legs for suspension. And guess what? Scooters, you're always in that mode as long as you don't lock your knees. You're always in that mode. And so riding a scooter without suspension is actually a little bit smoother than what you might think from the experience of riding riding a bicycle without suspension. So there are um, definitely some solid use cases still for scooters that don't have suspension, and some definite advantages there as well in portability.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. You would kind of never tell just looking at one that the one without a suspension would be actually a bit more confident than the one with. When you think about, let's say, when we talk about VMAX, we kind of presented in the intro the VMAX as a brand. How would you describe VMAX? What's a single problem VMAX is trying to solve? What's the look and feel of the brand? Kind of walk us through it, please.
Yeah. So VMAX scooters they're a bit different. And it's really one of the things that attracted me to the brand as a reviewer of scooters. And just quick background on me. For 4 years, I was the head of content for Electric Scooter Guide. So I was testing and making videos about all of the best brands of electric scooters. And I encountered VMAX and was blown away by these scooters in the process of reviewing them. And it really stuck in my head. And then every time I would come back to a VMAX scooter, there's something was different about them. They rode better than other scooters. And that ultimately led to me leaving Electric Scooter Guide and joining VMAX, even though they weren't hiring. I had been kind of wanting to join a brand for a while, and I was so impressed by this brand after testing everything else that I wanted to join. And so what is different? And so I do attribute that to the Swiss design and the Swiss approach to making electric scooters. And It's the toughest thing because it's not any one thing. I can't point to say, "Oh, it's the carbon fiber frame of the VX8," which we do have, but it's just the entire philosophy of making the whole scooter work together. It's just quality, supply chain. It's just this aesthetic also. But what it ends up with is these are scooters made for adults. We don't make any scooters for kids. I mean, smaller adults and larger teens can certainly ride them, but these are vehicle grade scooters. And they're all black. They're very understated, which is very Swiss. And then so is the design approach. It's just everything is just very well thought out, very well integrated. The throttle response is beautiful. But they're also the performance is it's also kind of not what you expect. You see these even our smaller scooters. I have to warn people sometimes like, hey, if you put this into beast mode, and you aren't ready for it, these motors are powerful and you could get a wheelie out of it. It's kind of,
Mm.
you really do think of them as vehicles where you have to kind of respect it. But then when you do, it just rewards you greatly because it really rides like nothing else. There's scooters that experienced riders really appreciate, but beginners can start on them as well. If you're brand new to it, you just go, oh, it's a nice scooter. If you've ridden 10 other scooters, 100 scooters, 200 scooters like I have, the VMAX scooters really shine because now you've really got something else to compare it to, and you can tell that like it's um, as we like to say, Swiss precision in every detail. Just the way that the reach and brakes work, the throttle, all of it. One example is that and we'll talk about we can get into brakes later if we want to, but one example is that we use a combination of mechanical and regen brakes. And many scooters do, almost all do, but scooters like the Dualtron scooters and historically most scooters, the brake switch is an on-off switch. So when you send that signal to say, I need some regen breakdown here, it's going to give you all of it or none of it, or it's going to give you some little pre-programmed ramp where it gives you some brake and then more and
Mhm.
more and more and more and more. And the longer you hold it, the more regen brake you get. And then, it's a good compromise. But the top level companies like Apollo, Emax, Segway, New, all of those companies have variable regens. When the more you pull the lever, the more regenerative brake you get, and it just is very transparent. It blends with a mechanical brake, and it works beautifully. And it's that kind of detail that really is found everywhere throughout the VMAX scooters, and is really what brought me to the brand.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like as you said, you as someone who has been reviewing those type of vehicles for such a long time, you definitely see the little finesses. You definitely see a little things that make a big difference in between a good product, between a good e-scooter and the one that's actually good, very good. Um, yeah, as you kind of said, all the time, when you do brand something as Swiss, and when something is as Swiss made, first association to me always a Swiss Army knife. Something that kind of fits, mashes a lot of great things in one. So yeah, I'm guessing the scooters are like that. Kind of what I was getting from just checking your guys' website and looking at some articles. VMAX kind of proudly presents itself as a high quality and reliable. So can you again maybe tell us in kind of concrete terms,
Mhm,
what does that mean in
mhm.
the product in the exact product specs?
And I should be just to be really clear about the where the scooters come from. We do so they're engineered in Switzerland and they're designed there. In fact, all my internal documentation it comes in German when I get it if it's early enough and it hasn't been translated in English yet. But we do manufacture in China to keep things affordable. But it's in our own VMAX factory. In fact, it's a brand new factory that we inaugurated in 2024. And so we have, Swiss oversight and everything's built to Swiss quality. But the reliability is such a key thing. Just like you said, the quality, the watches, the Swiss Army knives, the safety is another big pillar of Swiss design. So and again, it's just, it's in the details, things like UL certification, IPX6 water resistance ratings, and then other things that are less obvious, like making sure this is hits on safety and reliability. Is that we use drum brakes on our scooters. One, because they wear basically forever, especially combined with regen brakes. They just don't wear out the way the disc brake pads wear out. And the other is that if you go really big on disc brakes, like many scooters do, it's easy to put yourself over the handlebars. And drum
Mm.
brakes generally won't do that. And so that's one of the reasons why we use drum brakes as the dominant brake on the scooters. But yeah, everything is really engineered with safety and reliability as number one. And the core of that is just, starting with a really solid frame and scooters that are, just built with, with the best components. We use ECE cells in in all of our scooters so far, and those are the same cells. And BMW, who's used them in their cars, might still be the dominant cell in the
Mhm.
BMW electric cars. So it's a very very high quality approach. It's something we actually don't talk about. I've never talked about this before, but I think it's okay to say is that
Please, please.
our factory workers actually make a significant amount. It's some very large amount, like 50% more, might be more than that, than the folks that work right across the street in other factories. And as a
Wow.
result, we don't lose anybody. Everybody who's come and joined the team stays, and we get that experience, and you get all the benefits that you get from having very low turnover. And if it's anything like I've actually not visited the factory, but if it's anything like working with the rest of the team, everybody to a person that I've ever met at VMAX in the VMAX environment and worked with have been amazing, wonderful people to work with. And it just, it's a great company. It's a great place to be. And, happy employees tend to make happy products. And as a former race car mechanic and car and as someone who's professionally restored cars for a living before, I have this philosophy that if you are in a good place, you build good products. And I firmly believe that that also happens in the factory. That if you're treating folks well and you're really, working with good people, you're going to do your best work.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, if you're someone who's working in a factory, or in general design, if you're paid good, you're more motivated, and then you're gonna have a better output. So that's in generally how it works. And yeah, you're totally right when it comes to that. And I'm happy it's like that. It's good to hear there's still companies who are run like that, who have people like that. When we kind of talk about your lineup, kind of the most interesting, I would say, thing. There's a lot of on your website. If you scroll through, there's a lot of different scooters. There's a range, a price range. There's something I would say for everyone. If there's no point of me asking you who is your buyer persona, because I think you have multiple of them. Okay, as I said, it is for adults, but you do have a great umbrella of scooters. So let's say myself, as someone who is in their let's say mid 20s, looking for an e-scooter. If I'm deciding between VX2, Hub Gear, VX4, VX8, what's the quick choose for
Yes.
each? And let's say me living in Europe, will be a good fit for me.
Yeah. And so I'll take you through the US specs, since they are a little different from the European specs. And that's something that we really had
Okay.
to target when we launched here, was that in the US, where it's kind of the Wild West, we have very few rules in terms of the speed limits and power
Oh
limits,
yeah.
things like that.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I
Now,
forgot about that totally.
we're limited a little bit in how how you use them, but in the U.S. it's mostly left up to the users, and we're allowed to design them to work the best way we think they can work, and then people can use them within the laws of their own communities. But yeah, let me take you through the products, because I love doing this, because it's I used to own a motorcycle shop. I spent a lot of time pairing people with the best possible motorcycle for their person and for their use case, and I love doing that with the scooters as well. And we'll go bottom to top. And it's not in order either. The VX5 is our entry level scooter. It's one of the highest numbers, but it's one of our smallest scooters. And it's our entry level scooter. And it's just been blowing up this year in popularity ever since I made a video where I compared a $200 Amazon scooter to our $500 VX5 Pro, which seems like a ridiculous, scary thing to do, because, oh my gosh, everybody's going to buy this Amazon scooter. Actually goes a mile or two an hour faster than the VMAX scooter. But why are people now, after watching the video, buying the VMAX scooter? And it's because of just the riding experience. You've got the tubeless tires and the smooth the throttle, the smooth ride, and parts availability. But it's for terms of who they're for, the VX5 is our entry-level scooter. Anybody can ride it. It goes 17 miles an hour, and it costs about $500. It's also our most portable scooter, easy to put in the trunk for last miling, for jumping in an Uber, when you're going multimodal, switching onto a train, switching onto a bus, or carrying it into the store. It's a great choice and really affordable at around $500. The next one up from that is our historic bestseller, which is our VX2 Pro. And the VX2 Pro is just a fantastic commuter with a top speed of 25 miles per hour. Now you're getting to the range where you can really blend with city traffic. A lot of people don't know this, but the average speed across a major city like San Francisco in a car is 12 miles per hour. So,
Hmm.
cars don't move as fast as you think in cities. And so here we go on this, $800 VMAX VX2 Pro. You've got a real commuter that can go 25 miles an hour, can keep up with traffic. It's still light enough to fold and carry, put in the trunk, bring inside, and a great entry level scooter, but also something that people can own and commute on for years, which is also why we have a 2-year warranty on all of our scooters. And it's pretty comprehensive. If you look into the fine print, it covers more of the scooter than I think just anybody else's warranties for the course of the 2 years. Many companies do have, the top companies have 2-year warranties, but they don't always cover the battery for the whole time. They don't always cover the controllers for the whole time, but our warranty does, and it's transferable. Companies like InMotion, Highboy, Kukirin, and one other notable company I've forgotten. They don't have transferable warranties. So even if 2 weeks later you say, it's not for me, and you sell it, your resale value might not be as good because the next buyer doesn't get to take advantage of those long warranties. Now, if we step up from the VX2 Pro, the next step up from that would be the VX2 Hub and VX2 Gear. And these look identical. Now we've added suspension. So these are our first full suspension scooters. And the gear gives you just huge gear driven torque. So you can climb literally any hill that exists in the United States. You can climb on this nice single motor scooter that's still relatively portable. Now the VX, but you do give up some top speed there. It only goes 21 miles per hour, which for some is plenty. But we also had the VX2 Hub, which is also an amazing hill climber. VX2 Hub goes 34 miles per hour. And now that's my do everything scooter. This is the scooter, my go to, just to cover all the bases. If I had to pick one scooter in the VMAX lineup for me, it would be the VX2 Hub because for me, it's the best blend of performance, portability, and range. I can fit my trunk without folding the seats down, but I can also absolutely beat any car across town. And I've ridden it 29.9 miles on the Electric Scooter Guide range test course in beast mode.
Hmm.
So like real world miles, real hard riding miles, 29.9 miles. And so love that scooter. It's just so useful, so much fun to ride. Next up from that, we have the VX4. And here we go from 1900 watts of peak power to 2800 watts of peak power.
Wow.
Big step up in power and top speed. We've got 37 miles per hour the VX4, the new VX4, and that one is it's great for heavier riders, and it's also great for longer range rides because it also has full suspension like the VX2 Hub, but it's longer travel suspension, and so it's a scooter that you can ride for hours and just feel really comfortable. It makes every ride feel too short because you're not tired from riding it. You're not getting beat up by the road. And one of the things I love about single motor scooters is the way the power comes on is not as intense. Dual motor scooters, you spend a lot of time kind of holding on for your life, like yanking on the handlebars and just feeling yanked around. Where single motor scooters, even big singles like the 2800 watt peak power of the VX4, of the new VX4, it doesn't yank you around so much, but it just goes. And so it's just really comfortable, really pleasant to ride for long rides. And again, with a 330-pound weight limit of this scooter, it's really well suited for your larger riders and is going to carry larger riders up big hills with no problems at all. Oh, and I kind of skipped over the VX8 because it's a really kind of a specialty scooter. The VX8 is our all carbon fiber scooter, and this uses also the same gear drive, in fact, same motor and controller that the VX2 gear uses, except the VX8 has no suspension and has an entirely carbon fiber frame for a weight of 34 pounds. But still has the same amazing hill climbing ability that the VX2 gear has. What you end up with is the world pound per pound, the world's strongest hill climbing scooter. It's the lightest scooter that can climb the steepest hill in the United States, and in fact could probably carry another scooter up that hill, which I actually did on the VX2 Gear one time. And so that's our general lineup right now. And now what's coming later this summer, we have the new VX6, which has 5,600 watts of peak power, and you'll notice that's exactly double the 2,800 watts of the VX4 because it has two VX4 motors. It is our
Wow.
first. Well, it's been a while. We've had dual motors before. This is the first since I've joined the company that we will have a dual motor flagship, and this is going to compete with the Segway GT3 Pro. Is a 50-mile-per-hour scooter. I think its big competition. Its big competition will be the Segway GT3 Pro, the InMotion RS Jet, and the Apollo Phantom Stellar, all of which are at top speeds around 50 miles per hour. And we're targeting in the low 2000s with this one, 2000 to $2,300, I think is where this one will land. All the good stuff, adjustable suspension, hydraulic brakes, 11-inch tubeless tires. It's going to be just an absolute beast. And I'm really looking forward to having this flagship out there, because even though I never personally really like to ride faster than 35 miles per hour, it's just a lot of fun to have a flagship out there, to have a scooter where somebody pulls up next to you and is like, hey, how fast did that go? You can go, yeah, it goes 50 miles an hour. It's really looking forward to that launch later this summer.
Wow, I just did a recalculation how much is 50 miles an hour in kilometers,
Yeah.
and I was just like, wow, this is yeah, this is very fast. For an
Yeah.
e-scooter, that's
Yeah, and that's another one that it was developed. In fact, all of our latest scooters were developed because we were coming to the U.S. market. So they were really developed in Switzerland by big Swiss guys, but with the intention of coming here. And so that's why they have sort of American style performance, and they're all built to fit American size riders.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like a great lineup. Now, kind of going back again to my
Mhm.
initial part of the question, choosing one. What would you say people most of the people maybe before answering something for me, but how would you say
Yeah.
people your buyers? What's the most
Mhm.
important thing for them on average? Is it a range? Is it
Yeah, and so the three main specs that people look at are top speed, range, and price. So depending on the person, one of those can end up being the dominating factor. So for those who are just looking to get started and they're really focused on price, the VX5 is a great scooter, all the Swiss quality, but you can get in for $500 and decide if scooting is for you. For range, the VX2, the original VX2 Pro without suspension is also pushing 30 miles per hour. I can't remember if it's a little more or just a little less than 30. Sorry, not 30 miles per hour, 30 miles of range for,
Mhm.
less than $1,000. So it's
That's
great,
great.
great value, tons of range. And then for speed, even though the VX4 is faster at 37 miles per hour, the 34 miles per hour of the VX2 Hub really is fantastic value for the speed there. And so again, depending on if somebody's looking for affordability, for just pure range, or for pure performance, those would be the three most popular choices.
Mhm. Would you say also maybe the use cases now again, okay, comparing Europe to the US, it's a totally different thing how the cities are conceived, made. But are your buyers mostly someone who is living in the, let's say, a city center, or living in a
Mhm.
suburbs, or it doesn't really matter on average? I'm just
Mhm.
asking, thinking what's the best use case? Okay, if we do have,
Yeah.
the products that you could hill climb,
Mhm.
that's totally something
Mhm.
out of
Yeah.
category, totally something special, niche. What would you say on average is your buyer persona when it comes to that?
Yeah. So cities are definitely, I think, the focus. They're just such great, Max scooters are such great city commuters. We do have the VX4 is off-road capable with the hybrid off-road tires and the longer travel suspension. And, the newer VX6 with big dual motors, people could potentially take that off-road or use it or more sort of wide open spaces. But I feel like in the US, I feel like, motorcycles and electric scooters are really find their home in the cities and are just amazing commuters. I commute across town to drop my kids off for school every day, and I encounter almost once a week, I'll cross paths with this one particular VMAX commuter, and I just love seeing them out there just doing their daily ride. So yeah, daily riding, commuting, these scooters are really made to put the miles on. And It's one of the things I remind people. I made a video about commuting recently. It's like if you're going to do that, if you're going to depend on a scooter to get yourself to work, you get something, you're going to put those miles on, get something that's going to cover you for, give you a nice long warranty and that's going to reliably get you to work. And so I think commuting is one of the really big use cases, although, they're a lot of fun to go out and ride on the weekends as well. And with the kind of range that we have, it's really ideal for a city as well. I've taken the original VX4, one of my favorite videos I made for Electric Scooter Guide. When I was the head of content, there was I took a VX4 and I rode around the entire perimeter of San Francisco. And then when I got home, it wasn't done yet, and so I had to keep going to figure out, well, how much further could I have gone. I went another 10 miles, and so it
Wow.
just will take you anywhere you want to go in the city and back on one charge. So even if you don't have the ability to charge at work or you forget to charge at work, these are scooters that can get you to work and back without any range anxiety.
Yeah,
Commuting
and
is
I
really
mean,
key.
not only are you having a great product that's compact, that's as you said, portable. If you're living, let's say, close to downtown or downtown, and your office is downtown, it's like you don't need a car
Mhm.
pretty much. Most of the time, you are avoiding traffic. Just a perfect daily commuter.
Yeah, in fact, I made a video back at the Electric Scooter Guide, we made a video where we wanted to challenge that idea is because one of the objections we hear is, oh, I don't have time to commute by scooter. I have to take my car to get to work fast. And it turns out it's actually faster to commute by scooter. And we had this idea and we're like, let's go prove it. And so we raced my 300 horsepower BMW from one side of town to my favorite cafe on the other side of town. And I got stuck with the car. Ray Muir got to ride an Apollo City scooter, sort of mid-level commuter scooter. And then we had another friend take a lightweight scooter and transit. And so she got on the train straight away and then was going to ride the scooter from the train to the cafe. And I was driving all the way there and Ramir was riding all the way there. Ramir won by a landslide. I even got lucky with parking and he still just was there relaxing long before I got there. The transit rider should have done better. The train got delay in the middle of her ride. Otherwise, I think she would have been competitive. She came in third, but I think she probably could have beat the car had she not hit a snag there. But that's the nature of transit. Sometimes it does that to you. But scooters never do. Scooters just, get you there every time. So yeah, they're
So
great
pretty much the
commuters.
guy on the scooter was ordering his second espresso while he got to the cafe
Yes,
with a car.
exactly.
Yeah, that's amazing use case and a great showcase how what we talk about on this show. Micromobility is changing the game. It is something that's maybe not now as misunderstood as a year and a half ago, but definitely something that people need to consider. Using your cars less, not only of course to help the planet, but to just make our cities more efficient and more enjoyable in general.
The, the cost savings is actually pretty amazing too. I made another video recently. In fact, I made a whole tool, a web tool that goes along with this video, where you can calculate if you were to buy an electric scooter and use it for commuting, how long does that scooter take to completely pay for itself? And
Hmm.
it surprised me, the results of this calculator was spitting, and I checked them. It's like 6 to 8 weeks. A scooter will pay for itself if you commute by scooter instead of driving a car. And it turns out where I live, charging an electric scooter costs half a cent per mile. So you can fully charge an electric scooter for 15 cents. And then the cars, on the other hand, I think it was like 15 cents per mile for fuel and another 45 cents per mile for depreciation, repairs, everything else. So we're looking at 60 cents a mile. And so it was 100 times more expensive per mile
Yeah.
to drive a car than to ride a scooter. It's amazing, yeah, especially right now. And that was before the recent price increase. That was kind of at more nominal gas prices. So it's
Yeah,
even bigger
that's
difference now.
perfect. That's again what we preach on this channel. Absolutely, that's cost effectiveness is just unmatched. You cannot match it with any type of car.
Electric scooters also allow us we're a family of four and we've got one car and of course, at VMAX, so I have a whole fleet of scooters. And so it really enables that if we can get away with one car, which is great because in the city, we don't have that much parking. And
That's
so,
super rare.
yeah, really,
Your
really
case
handy
of having a one
combination.
car on four family members is so rare, and
Yeah. And of
it's
course it's
so great you
electric.
can manage it.
I've got a Tesla Model 3 Performance, and absolutely loving it, especially right now with gas prices.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. I was just off topic totally. I was just researching today because I was in the Uber Cup, and I'm looking at Tesla potentially buying. I don't know, but I've been always in the I think when I was sitting in the back in Lyft or in Uber. I think it's always
Mhm.
the older generation, like 2019 to 2022, and to me they're so uncomfortable in the back, so firm. So I was kind of reading throughout the Reddits. Did they kind of fix that on newer models? So I guess they did. I don't know.
That's interesting 'cause my model, I had a right before this, a BMW 435i, 2016, and those seats, the driver's seat anyway, was so stiff. The leather was like very, very firm. I came from a Porsche before that, 997S. And so I feel like the driver's seat anyway is much more comfortable in the Tesla than it was in the BMW. And but yeah, from the driver's perspective, I find the 2022 model very comfortable.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. But maybe it's just I don't know. Maybe that maybe those Teslas that was in they had like maybe old suspensions. I don't know.
No, the suspension, you're right. Yeah, the suspension is stiff, and it does
Yeah, the
get better in the
suspension.
new
Yeah,
ones.
suspension.
Yeah,
It does get better.
yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah, it does. It's a lot better. The 2024 onward is much, much smoother.
Okay, awesome. Shooting back to
Yeah.
scooters, the thing that I mentioned in the when I was talking about certificates, when I was talking about the numbers and letters, VMAX highlights UL2272 and rating confidently with IPX6. What do you want your future riders to understand about safety standard versus actual marketing
Yeah.
claims, and what do they mean actually? Those.
Yeah, and so those two are the most important certifications these days. IPX6, so IP ratings, when you hear about them, are for dust and water. The one we really care about is water. The first one is sometimes you see like IP 554, which means it scores a 5, higher is better for dust, and a 4 for water. But water on an electrical vehicle, of course, is the one we really care about, and that's the last number, and that's the 6. And that means that you're going to be able to go through, a normal shower, rain shower, and, get caught in the rain, and you're going to be okay. There are no, just none of the scooters. You can't submerge them. You don't ride them through standing water. That's bad. And water is going to find a way in if you submerge any electric scooters. So generally, the rule that I follow is I try to stay, out of water that's deeper than the sidewalls of the tires, because you don't want to submerge again the motor. And regular riding, splashing through puddles, and commuting in moderate rain, an IPX6 scooter is really going to get you where you're going with no problems. It is always a good idea to park it somewhere dry and give it a chance to dry out in between rides. You don't want to ride a scooter for hours in the rain and then park it in the rain. It's always better to give things a chance to dry out a little bit. But but anyway, yeah, look for IPX6. That's become a common rating for the higher end scooters these days. And that's as high as I've really seen for water resistance ratings on electric scooters. The other one is UL2272. What that does, it makes sure you have safe charging for your electric scooter. And that is specific to electric scooters. E-bikes have their own UL numbers, and UL2272 is the one that we use for scooters. And the original VMAX lineup all has it, the VX2, the VX2 Pro, the VX5. It's still the VX2 Hub, new VX4, for whatever reason, that's still pending. UL's been kind of overrun. There's been so much demand for testing as has become such a priority that those certifications are still pending on these scooters. But we know how to make approved scooters. We know how to make safe charging, and that's just so important because you don't want to worry about your scooter, bursting into flames. And so you definitely want to look for companies that know how to do that, how to make UL 227.
I guess very important thing, very important question you've raised a point. We had Al Reid from Microfleet. He's your Australian colleague, and he builds docks, universal docks for e-scooters and all types of derivatives. And he was actually just raising the question about safety of charging because in Australia they had multiple cases of dormitories, college dormitories
Yes.
actually,
Yeah.
unfortunately, ending up in a fire because, they were charging, those like, maybe cheaper alternatives, cheaper
Mhm.
e-scooters in actual rooms. So
Mhm.
yeah, there is some,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. There's a great, yeah, there's a,
Yeah.
there's a big logic behind it.
Mhm. And that makes sense. College students, they're probably choosing the least expensive scooters, which also often means, the brands that really are not doing their homework, and brands that may not have the safest battery packs. Now, a great data point I have on the safe charging side of things, and stand proof I've seen that it can be done very, very well and very, very safely, is I used to run the Lime San Francisco warehouse. So before the pandemic, I was responsible for the entire 1,300 scooter fleet, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was my job to
Wow.
know where all these scooters were, their state of health, their state of charge, and all the people driving around picking them up and all those things. But so at any given moment, we had 300 scooters charging. We had 1,000 on the street and 300 inside the building. And we had warehouses all over the world and never a problem charging. And just you can imagine just the volume of scooters charging. And it was just really using just good engineering. I've had some BMS engineers, the battery management system engineers, once tell me, he goes, people talk about good cells, and it's great to use good cells, but it's like, if you know what you're doing with the right BMS, you can make any battery pack safe. And they really felt like it was that over everything else. And and I tend to believe them. Lime used great engineering, VMAX uses great engineering, and you really make charging extremely safe just by having the right safety systems engineered in.
Yeah, speaking of companies like Lime, have you seen the new Bolt scooter? It just came out with it.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, you got
What
to
is,
check it
can you
out.
describe it? Yeah.
Have you heard about Bolt? They're big
Yes, a,
European.
little bit, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's
but I
similar
don't
to
think I've,
Lime, pretty much. The big
yeah.
fleets, e-scooters, and it's super interesting because it has integrated screen with everything. So you pretty much don't need your phone. Yeah, and it,
So it's
and
got
and
navigation?
it has a navigation, and it's
Yeah.
like integrated under a certain type of protection
Mhm,
film, which is super thick, so it's
mhm.
it's very durable.
Yeah.
And I haven't read the full article; it just came out, but from the first glance, it truly looks very interesting. So people were in the
That
comments asking, "Oh, can I buy one for myself?" And then the guys from Bolt were like, "Oh, this is kind of we can sell them, but this is kind of overkill when it comes to how durable they actually are. You don't
that's
need
true.
them to be as
Yeah.
durable."
That's true. We used to say when we were engineering the next generation of scooters that we wanted them built like a lamppost or like the inside of a bus, something that the
Hmm.
public can't destroy. It was a really
Yeah.
different design brief than you use for a private scooter. But that reminds me, the navigation is such an interesting thing. This is a feature I actually need to get out and explore more a little bit on the VMAX scooters. We have integrated recently turn by turn navigation on screen. And so we'll have a little
Hmm.
arrow pop up and tell you to turn left, turn right, because that was one of those trickiest things about if you're really going exploring on an electric scooter, having to stop and pull out your phone to see where you are, where you're going, it takes a lot of the fun and fluidness out of the
Yeah.
ride. So adding that feature in, that's been one of my favorite new app features is on-screen navigation with the VMAX scooters. The other favorite feature is really not obvious, and this is one of those hidden gotchas on electric scooters, and that is that we don't force you to use the app at all with the VMAX scooters. One of the things I
Hmm.
love about them is I pull one out of the box, you plug in one cable, you put the four bolts in that to mount the handlebars, and you go ride. It's
Perfect.
such a frustrating experience for me when I unbox. Segway has amazing engineering. I want to say I'm not going to what a diss Segway, but Segway or New or Apollo all make great scooters. But I'm so frustrated when I pull one out of the box because I had to spend 30 minutes like setting up the app before I can write it. And all I want to do is push the button and go. And then I'll come back and I'll finesse the app later, but they don't really let you do that. They force you to create a login, email it to yourself, do all those things. Whereas the VMAX scooters give you 100% control right through the display if you can choose to use the app or not use the app. And so also from a privacy point of view, that's also it's very Swiss. Swiss banks are known for their
Oh
privacy.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
that is another feature of the scooter from a privacy point of view. If you want to choose to never create a login and never use the app, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, that's
And some of the app features from new in particular, can be really overbearing. I was going through my footage yesterday of old videos, and I found a couple clips of me driving around with a Segway 9 Max G2 in the back of the car, and it won't stop beeping in my ear because it thinks I'm stealing it. And I'm like, I don't know how to turn this feature off. And maybe you can't turn it off, but they don't like to be moved when they're not being ridden. And it was just so it was so frustrating. And then with the new scooter, I actually owned a KQI Air for a little while. That's their carbon fiber scooter, their version of the VX8. And every time I would go to ride that scooter, I would find it completely dead. And I'm like, I was charged when I parked it. What's wrong? Well, it wasn't dead. It went to sleep. So I have to find the charger and plug it
Mm,
in, and I can wake it up. And it had actually lost a significant amount of charge because it's sitting there listening for Bluetooth or whatever it does. And so it would actually drain the battery actually quite a bit, but it would also go to sleep in a way you absolutely could not wake it up if you didn't have the charger with you.
wow, that's annoying.
And so you had to wake it up. And then it also would do a lot of beeping and things if you didn't unlock it with the little card
Mm.
before moving it across the garage. It would make a lot of beeps and things. So sometimes the engineering goes a little too far.
Yeah, over engineering is a real thing. If you want to make something
Yeah.
look cool and sell all those features that we may not actually
Hmm.
need. So okay,
Yeah.
you mentioned Apollo, you mentioned Neo, you mentioned
Yeah.
Segway. Where does VMAX fit into that whole classroom?
Yeah.
And
That's a
how
great
would
question.
you say VMAX differentiates? Why should
Okay.
someone choose VMAX over your competitors?
Mhm. Yeah, and so I mention those guys a lot in my videos because one, because I do respect their designs. They're all very high quality scooters, all with 2-year warranties. Segway, Apollo, New are probably the three brands I would most compare with VMAX. And but then that one differentiator that I just mentioned is true versus all of these is that we don't force you to use the app. We don't get bogged down in making your scooters go to sleep on you and just kind of making it over complicated. And we do give you that privacy. In terms of ride quality, I think the top two are really VMAX and Apollo. Apollo with their silky smooth throttle response, and VMAX just with the overall, just the frame and the power. We have more power per dollar, more acceleration per dollar, a little bit more performance oriented than Apollo. It does have, lovely finesse. Way is gadgety is the best way to describe it. They're so big, such a big company. But I feel like their scooters have skewed a little bit more gadgety. If you look, there's a lot of plastic on there that looks pretty cool. Honestly, I fall for it too. I mean, I don't even say fall for it. I think they're neat looking, but it's kind of Transformer-esque and it's a little over the top. Most of that plastic doesn't do anything. It doesn't make the scooter faster. It doesn't make it ride better. It's just there to look kind of. And with VMAX, are really going the other way, and we're keeping things just super simple and keeping the engineering just doing what is necessary to make the best riding scooter. And that's it for me. Is ultimately it's the best possible combination of performance and sort of grown up aesthetics and just a riding experience that you appreciate more and more as you get more experienced. It's these are scooters that expert riders can really appreciate, but they're also made that to be accessible to brand new riders and just a elegant and smooth ownership experience right from the very beginning.
Yes, yes. I mean, yeah, that's what we kind of talked from the get go about you being VMAX being that kind of Swiss mentality of being, everything is practical, everything is simple, everything is there for a reason. Right?
And
We
and the
are
biggest
sorry, yeah, go
thing,
for it.
I was gonna say, and one of the biggest, most important things, most important features of electric scooter brands that doesn't get talked about enough, and I'm talking about it in every video because I just think this is so important, is parts availability, and that's something that I think Apollo does a pretty good job at. Segway does a pretty good job at. New, I hear mixed things, but even then, probably a bit much better than the generic brands. And so the huge differentiator is these generic brands on Amazon. There's one key thing, if I could give everybody one piece of advice of buying an electric scooter, this is it, is before you push that buy button, take that exact scooter that you were looking at buying and go pretend like you're going to buy 5, 10 different parts for it right now and make sure you can find them available, that they're actually orderable, and preferably they're in your country. So you're not going to hit with any surprise tariffs or long delays waiting for parts. And there are two key reasons for this. One is you just want to know that the parts are there if you ever need to order them yourself. But the other one is that if they don't offer those parts for sale, they probably don't have them available for you under warranty either. And in some cases, like the best-selling scooter on Amazon, which I did a whole video about, the Max Shot V Sports, I think it was called, there are no parts. You can't even look up the parts. You could hold up your parts against the screen and guess that some similar looking part might fit from some other company. But especially when it comes to firmware, plugging things in and expecting if it's not the exact part for that exact scooter, the odds of it working when you plug it in are very, very low. So essentially, with those $200 scooters on Amazon, you're buying a disposable scooter. The first time anything breaks, anything meaningful breaks on that scooter, it's done. You're gonna have to go recycle it. It's unrepairable. It's truly disposable. Whereas, VMAX, Apollo, Segway, New, all the best companies are really making, vehicle grade scooters. We've got parts and we're making scooters that are designed like a vehicle that you can commute on it. And if something goes wrong, we're either going to take care of it under warranty, or if it's out of warranty, you're going to be able to buy parts for it.
Yeah, well, speaking of one of the competitors that you just mentioned, we are hosting new technologies next week, so it's gonna be a fun
Oh,
conversation.
fantastic.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely reference to what we were talking about here, and it's gonna be
Yeah,
cool. Maybe in the future it'll be great to host all of you guys together in
I would,
some
I
kind of
would
a
love that.
session. Yeah, in
Yeah, I've
some
been
kind of
talking
a
with
discussion
CNET.
session.
I've been talking with CNET recently about doing co-hosting a blog with a vlog with Apollo and I at the same time. We've been trying to get that together, but it would be great because with scooter guys, it's like car guys, we all really are here for the love of the scooters, and we all have a lot in common. And it's a lot of fun to talk with other folks in the industry. For the longest time, Joseph Constantine would have been the guy that you've been speaking to, but he is now moved on from being the global director of marketing over there. Also, ask them about their stock price. I'm very curious about that. Their stock has had a wild ride over the
Oh,
last few years. And so they're one of the few publicly traded electric scooter companies out there. Segway, I think, is traded, but I think not here, maybe in China. But New is traded here, so you can actually it's fun to watch.
yeah, the see the reaction. Actually, this happened. Yeah, it's gonna be a very interesting conversation. And yeah, definitely comparing. Yeah,
Although the other thing about new is that you'll find that the e-scooters, kick scooters, are a relatively small part of what they do, and so their stock performance is not
yeah,
necessarily
absolutely.
indicative. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily indicate their performance in e-scooter. And then also, their China market is so much larger than their export market or their U.S. market
Yeah,
that China often
absolutely.
dominates their financial results.
I'm 100% positive we're going to talk about a lot more things than just the scooters,
Mhm.
because of their big
Dirt
lineup,
bikes and all the other things.
dirt bikes and all the other. Well, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, and that's another thing I was gonna get into is I was thinking about, sort of changes in the industry. And one of the biggest changes in the last 2 years has been the advent of all of this Suron type, fast moto with questionable legality dirt bikes showing up on the market. And I really feel like it's been an interesting time for the for the kick scooter, the e-scooter market, because those vehicles, I feel like they really sucked all the air out of the room for electric scooters. They cost $5,000. So you could buy, you know, you know, 5 to 10 scooters, like e-scooters for that, but the price of one of those. And so a lot of the interest, a lot of the money I think, has kind of shifted that direction for a little while. And now there's this incredible pushback coming from local law enforcement and states and cities against those small e-motos. And so now those e-motos have to either find a legitimate home as dirt bikes that ride in off-road parks, e-motos that ride with license plates and require insurance and licenses, or they they go away. And so it's going to be very interesting to see whether or not we see a surge of business back to kick scooters as the heat comes down on those Sauron type e-motos, or if maybe there's some blowback that spills over into the e-scooter space and we get heavily regulated. It's hard to know which way it's going to go. So that's one of the things I've got my eye on for 2026 and 2027 is to see how the e-moto space and all the drama that's unfolding over there comes back around and if that has any effect on the e-scooter space.
yeah, definitely interesting. I mean, we talk about legislation a lot on this podcast because, okay,
Mm,
again, coming from EU country, coming speaking to a lot of EU, not only owners but builders, someone who is
mhm.
developing a brand new category. Everybody's like, kind of, damn, building something in EU definitely hard because it's so hard to put it
Yeah.
out, it's so hard to legislate, so hard to obey. So we all kind of wish to have a system that's maybe merging the US way of doing things and our way,
Mhm.
so it's not maybe like you said, a Wild
Yeah.
West. Well, everything is kind of a bit too much, maybe we're risking too much of people's lives. But also, In the other hand, we are like too much in a sense. We're actually slowing down the businesses. We are slowing down the adoption. So yeah, it's always when we went to the France 2 weeks ago. No, a month ago. It was a great motorcycle show, but there was also e-scooters. There was a Segway. New was there, but everyone was there. So every new product that comes out or concept, all Europeans are like, but can they actually put it to market?
Yeah.
That's kind of our reaction.
Yeah. And it's such an interesting subject because I'm actually like you were saying, it can be a little too little in the United States. I've ridden a 72 mile per hour scooter. I've gone 72.1 miles per hour on a two
Wow,
direction, like scientifically timed speed run. And that's ridiculous.
that's
There's no need
absolutely
for that.
crazy.
This is dangerous and we probably shouldn't have those. And if we keep doing that sort of thing, we will go blowback and it might swing really hard the other direction. And you don't want that. For example, in California right now, they're considering slowing down the e-bikes, the already approved, already, the very standard, class two, class three e-bikes. They're talking about regulating those down. And I think that's just, it's a knee-jerk reaction. It's an overreaction. And I think it actually makes things less safe because you're less able to blend with traffic when you really need to. For me, I think the idea of being able to flow with traffic is one of the reasons I feel uncomfortable riding a bicycle across the city is because every car has to kind of find its way around me. And that makes me very nervous because I can't even see them or help them do that. Whereas if you have vehicles that can kind of flow with city. I don't mean they need to get on the freeway and pass cars on the freeway, but if they can flow with city traffic, that is just so key for safety, for usability, for commuting, all of these things. And so I just hope that when regulations come, that they do keep that in mind. Because to me, that's just the number one most important thing is let's keep using these as vehicles. Let's replace those gas powered vehicle miles with these much more efficient vehicles that take up a lot less space and wear the roads out a lot less. And we'll all be a lot better off.
Yeah, it's definitely a social thing. Let me tell you, as European coming to US a lot, European drivers are much more inclined towards micromobility, much more careful on
Mhm.
on the roads driving. So it is, I think, definitely a process where drivers, everybody involved in the traffic, has to be aware of people on scooters, on e-bikes. It takes time, but I think definitely, yeah, as you said, a reaction that's maybe too much. As you said in California, that's not good. That just slows things down. That's not what we want. But yeah, definitely, it is a process. Definitely takes a lot of time. But yeah, we are bullish on micromobility. Definitely on this show, we wanted to expand. And yeah, you kind of mentioned the future, but I wanted to ask you, what's with VMAX in the next? I mean, what do you see company in the upcoming a year or two?
Mhm.
What's coming up? If you can spill any tea of what's happening behind
Yeah.
the scenes, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I can. So I hinted a little bit. So I mentioned the VX6, and I'm super excited about that. Not because I want to go 50 miles per hour, but because of the attention that it brings to the brand and just having that flagship. It really is. Nothing gets headlines like top speed, and just having that capability. I'm excited to bring more attention from those super enthusiast riders over to the VMX brand. And I think many of them may, once they've got their attention, might discover, hey, actually the X2 Hub is the more practical choice. But it's just great being able to span really the entire market and having great choices across the entire market. The other thing that's coming this year that has not been talked about so much is that the VX2 Hub is a great scooter, but it's $1,200-$1,300 scooter. It could be a little bit out of some people's budgets. And so people saw that and said, "Gosh, I love the suspension that you brought to your best-selling VX2 Pro. Adding suspension to that, but I don't necessarily want to go 34 miles per hour, and I don't necessarily want to spend more than $1,000." And so we said, "Great, let's take our best-selling VX2 Pro, which is a 24 mile per hour, $900 scooter, and just put suspension on that." And so we've just done a light update on the display and then, added suspension there. And you get this scooter that looks just like our VX2 Hub, but is much more affordable. It'd probably be in the $800-$900 range with full suspension and the full, Swiss quality. And so I'm really looking forward to that. That's mid-June. I'm going to keep an eye out for that.
Very soon.
We've placed our order with the factory. We're waiting for production to start, and then of course
Awesome.
for it to come by ship, and then we'll have those still while we still have some really solid months of riding left in the summer. We'll get those, and I think that's going to be just a really huge thing for VMAX. I think value wise, we've never presented a scooter that hits all the marks the way that this one does in terms of value, but also retaining all of the quality and quality that our scooters are known for. So super excited about that scooter. And then after that, it's less predictable. We've got other things in the pipeline, but it's harder to say when those other ones will come. But it's too light. Keep an eye out for that. It's gonna be amazing.
Awesome, awesome. We'll definitely cover once it's out. Sounds like yeah, great future ahead of VMAX and the whole industry of e-scooters. So definitely a market that's emerging, that's exciting. That's a lot of things
Yeah.
happening, a lot of things changing. Adoption is happening as fast as ever. So yeah, definitely an interesting field.
Yeah, and in the long term, if I look out, in the 2 to 5 year space, I can't wait to see the impact of solid state batteries when they
Wow.
make their way down through motorcycles and cars down to electric scooters. It'll be a little while,
Donut Lab.
but
Have you read about that?
yes, yeah, it's just that for me, it's not even it's not so much with them, it's longevity, how many charge cycles you can do, but realistically, charge cycles wise, electric scooters, because people aren't going hundreds of miles a day on them, it's not as important the charge cycles as it is the energy density. And so, if we can make scooters the by far the pacing item for how heavy they are is and how far they can go is the energy density of the battery. So if we can get a significant improvement in energy density, it really changes the game in terms of making scooters that you can just carry into the grocery store or that you can ride 40, 50 miles in one charge. Looking forward to how solid state batteries impact the scooter industry in the next 2 to 5 years.
Yes, we are definitely. We hope to see them in Berlin and to ask them. I'm guessing everybody's gonna attack them and be like, "You
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
actually, it's gonna be just yeah." And the Verge motorcycle is gonna be there that has their batteries. So
Yeah.
we're gonna see as well. We're gonna interview them in person, see what they say. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Also, yeah, solid. I mean, solid state batteries for the whole industry are just gonna once they are done right, once they're actually showing the results on, I would say, a higher scale. It's I think it's pretty. I will never say it's over for combustion engine type of vehicles, but it's definitely a big plus towards the whole side of EV.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's always interesting for me as a new EV owner. I've just had one for 1 year now. Is to see, and I'm a huge combustion engine fan. I mean, I'm a
Me
motorcycle
too.
mechanic for over a
Petrol head.
decade. I've restored vintage Ferraris. One of them was a over $20 million car. I mean, I've
Wow.
really just my whole life as a gearhead and petrol head, as you say. I don't know that I've ever loved a car more than I love my Tesla. Just like the daily driving experience. And so to watch people try to poke holes in that experience, it's almost a straw man argument in itself by using even if you use the real existing car, try to poke holes in that experience because cars have had over 100 years to get here. And electric cars, realistically, a little over a decade in full production. And so this is a rapidly moving target. Cars are aging. Electric cars, I mean, they age like phones, not because the old ones are bad, but because the new ones are so much better, so much
So much
faster.
better.
It's such a moving target but the fact that even as they are right now, or even as they were in 2022 when mine was made, to me, it's already such a winning solution, a winning combination. Just to even imagine where that goes 10 years from now kind of blows my mind. It's either going to be so much better. And in fact, and this is getting way off topic here. I am not really much of a believer in regulating or forcing. California did an absurd thing where we say, "Oh, we're going to ban all gasoline cars by some certain year," and all you're doing is generating pushback when you do that sort of thing. Just let the cars win, let the technology win, let the experience win, because it will win. It is winning, and you avoid all the pushback by just quietly winning instead of by trying to force things. Or don't force something that's going to win anyway. And so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's really wonderful watching all the new technology evolve.
Absolutely, I agree with you. We do have at one point I still have the BMW i3, the EV, and I
Yeah.
love it. But at one point we had a hatchback. We have a hot hatchback with like
Hmm.
200 plus horsepower in our house, and the BMW i3, which is kind of also a hatchback.
Hmm.
And I caught myself as again as a petrol head, sometimes loving the i3 more just because how fun it is. Just because it's actually
Hmm.
fun. It's rear wheel drive. It's super light. It's fast. It doesn't have the
Yeah.
sound, but it's very easy get in and out. No gear changes, no extra sound, no extra.
Hmm.
I don't know. So yeah, we are gonna have to conclude here with the main set of questions. We have our last pair of questions, which are called a lightning round, where I
Hmm.
ask you a simple question, you give me even simpler answer. So if you're ready, we can start with the first one, being, in your opinion, the most overrated scooter spec in marketing that's being marketed
Okay.
right now.
All right. So take a sip here, though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Please, please, please. Some caffeine.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So the most overrated scooter spec, and this is, I don't know. Some people disagree with this, but I think it's top speed. And
I
here I
agree.
am, the guy who has tested more scientifically tested the top speed of probably more electric scooters than anybody in the world over the last 5 years, and has, documented some of the highest speeds up, 72 miles per hour. Actually, the Medford, Oregon Police Department had a Facebook post that featured my picture in it from
Wow.
that headline of 72 miles per hour. But yeah, I think top speed is really the most overrated because it's a fun number to toss around. Its most useful thing is when somebody pulls up next to you at a light and somebody asks you how fast you can go, and you're like, "Oh, it goes
And
this
that's it.
fast." Because realistically, nobody likes to ride faster than 30, 35 miles per hour, like on a daily basis. It's on a scooter, it's just they're not really engineered for that. In terms of just if that was your thing was to go 50 miles an hour all the time, you get a motorcycle. Practically speaking, though, having the ability to go 35 is amazing. Having some acceleration left when you get there is kind of a feature if you do have a faster scooter, but definitely top speed, I'd say, is a bit overrated on electric scooters.
I would agree. One feature that quietly matters more than people think.
That one is I'm gonna go a little weird here and say spare parts. It's not even a feature of the scooter, but it is such a key thing. It's so key. It's like it's a red line. It's a red flag. It's a don't buy the scooter kind of a thing if you can't see the parts. And it's so easy to check. It takes 5-10 minutes. Everybody can check it. Always check it before you buy your scooter, and you'll end up with good companies and a good ownership experience.
Yeah, we kind of mentioned that before. So yes,
Yeah.
but definitely. I get we can kind of skip this one. Maybe you can give us another angle because this one kind of answers the previous one. The biggest mistake first time buyers make. Maybe
Yeah,
besides
and so
choosing
I'll
something.
take I'll take a different theme is a similar answer, but I take it a different direction. Is just choosing purely on price. It's very easy to get tempted to go buy on spec sheets alone. And it feels like the smart thing to do to look at price versus top speed, price versus the claimed range. But I would recommend you watching some YouTube reviews from people who really test them and find out what the realistic range is. This is something we didn't cover as an important subject, is that spec ranges are generally 2x what you're going to see in the real world. And the reason for that is that the spec range for all scooters is in eco mode, that's usually 9 to 12 miles per hour, in the lowest mode on flat ground. And and the scooter generally will hit that mark, but nobody really rides scooters that way. But some company at some point just decided to spec it that way. And if everybody else didn't spec it the same way, they would look like they weren't competitive. And that's how we ended up where we are, with the people being disappointed often in the real world range not matching the spec range. If you watch any of my videos for literally every single scooter that I have ever reviewed, including the VMAX scooters, I test them on the same test route, the same 1.8-mile loop that rises 90 feet from the highest point to the lowest point. I'm riding with the speed of traffic and riding them the way I think people would really ride them. And I record all those numbers, and they're in all my videos. And so it's a good reference point if you ever want to know for sure that one goes further than the other. Yes, if you weigh more than me, you might get 10 to 15% less than me. If you ride on flat ground, you might get a lot more range. And there are guys like Tom's Gadget Garage out there. He does also a fairly standardized range tests, but that'd be my advice, is to watch lots of videos, especially from reviewers who test the same way every time, and compare the numbers, and you'll get a much better idea about what your scooter is going to do in the real world.
Yeah, again, yeah, get informed. Don't just press the buy now button on
Yeah,
Amazon. Do your research.
Yes, absolutely.
The one city type where scooters make where e-scooters make the most sense immediately.
Mm, yeah, the higher density of the city, the better for scooters. I live in San Francisco, which is the ultimate scooter city. I found that when I was a motorcycle shop owner here as well. Here we have the terrible parking. We have a relatively small city and we have amazing weather. So we can ride every day of the year. And then the benefits are amazing because of the small size of the city and the terrible parking. It just makes it really hard to drive cars here and so much faster to ride scooters than to ride transit. So I would say as the density goes up, so does the advantage of riding electric scooters.
Awesome. And the last one is, what are you the most optimistic about in micromobility this year?
Really, it is that I feel like the focus is coming back to, I covered this a little bit earlier, the focus is coming back to electric scooters a little bit from the e-motos. The focus is coming to transportation as energy prices rise, as gas prices rise. People are leaning back into commuting on electric scooters and using them as vehicles instead of as playthings. And that really plays to VMAX's strengths because we really designed our scooters to be used for the daily commute and to be used as real vehicles. And so I am excited to see that shift coming back to electric scooters.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Likewise, yeah, as I said multiple times before, we are very optimistic about the whole e-scooter realm, micromobility realm. So yeah, all in general. Paul, thank you so much for coming. This has been a great conversation. We'll love to do a part two sometime in the future because I think we have so much things and topics to cover to go about, or have you in a different format with one of your colleagues from a different e-scooter brand, or someone that's doing something interesting in like a debate. But yeah, thank you once more. Thanks to the whole VMAX team to showing their faces on our show, and we wish them all the best luck in the future. Check them out. Definitely, we'll leave all the links below. And yes, all
Thanks
final
so much for
words.
having me, Mara, it's been a pleasure being here.
Of course. Take care, Paul, and guys, subscribe to Charging Stack, and we will be back with more content very soon. Bye bye.